All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're here for Dr. Burton's grievance against Dean Throop. Here's how we'll proceed. We'll allow Dr. Burton to offer her initial statement. We'll allow the dean to respond, and then if Dr. Burton would give a very brief response to that, and then the dean a brief response, and then we'll allow the committee members to ask any questions, and then we will wrap it up at that point, and we will have to meet privately for any kind of statement with respect to the grievance itself. So Dr. Burton, if you'd please. Do we need to introduce everybody? Maybe we do. I am Dr. Shane Gvnce from the philosophy program. Theron, if you go next.
Okay, I'm Theron Parsons, psychology.
Mary Rose Williams, media studies.
I'm Mian Kwon, mathematics.
Okay. And then
Mary Kennelly, I'm an attorney and representing Dr. Burton, just here as an observer today.
Okay.
I'm Roger Burton. I'm Sabina's husband.
Okay.
Sabina Burton.
Liz Throop.
I am Jennifer Lattis from the General Counsel's Office, and I'm also just observing.
Okay, great. So, if that's good, then Dr. Burton, we'll turn it over to you for your opening statement.
Thanks. One question I have was this, since this is listed as an open meeting, was that kind of advertised somewhere? Because I couldn't find it in a newspaper.
Oh, no, we didn't advertise it.
Okay.
I mean, certainly anybody who asked to attend could.
Okay, but it wasn't posted anywhere.
No, I was unaware that I needed to. So here's Dr. Scott White. So
Okay.
good.
Okay, I guess I'll wait until it's gone.
Can you come up here?
If we could.
Scott.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Sure.
Hello, Scott.
Hi, Steve.
Okay, ready? My grievance is that in our chair's position, we're supposed to have, we're supposed to have election every 3 years, and that did not happen. And part of my last grievance was that there would be election in our department, and that was not followed, so we didn't have elections. Instead, we had a new chair appointed from outside of our department, and so basically our process of faculty governance was violated. So there's the LANE Constitution addresses faculty governance in regard to choosing a chair, so do the bylaws, and then there's a Wisconsin state law that also addresses faculty governance, and I provided those laws in my grievance package to you, so I don't think I have to read from that. At this point, we have actually, over the summer, we have currently 4 tenured faculty members in the department. One of them is Dr. Kaywood, who was removed by the provost, and even though it was stated later on that he stepped down, actually in his own email he said he was removed by the provost, and he has stated so at several other meetings in the department, and was very displeased with the process. And because of that, from what I heard, he also filed a grievance. This is like a different matter. So we have 4 tenured faculty members. We have 2 of them are, actually 3 of them are PhDs. 2 of them are females. One is Dr. Fuller, and the other one is me. So, and we certainly have the qualifications in regard to interest. Dr. Fuller didn't, especially express an interest in being chair, but she actually in spring wanted me to run for chair and says, we should have elections and you should run for chair. So she said I would be a good candidate. So with the appointment in summer, that came unexpected, and that was pretty much a done deal. Also I was not very pleased that the selection of chair was based on the recommendation of a chair was removed as a disciplinary action. I didn't think that was a wise thing. Nobody else in our department was consulted on it, certainly not Dr. Fuller or myself. And I had a problem with that too. Also, like there were threats made against me that the chair we have now would kind of put me in place, which really didn't help with having a good beginning. And so there were some ulterior motives to why he was recommended for chair. Not saying that he's a bad chair now or anything. I do everything in my power to help him succeed, because I want our department to succeed, and it's my job to make our chair look good. And in fact, like the chair has relied very heavily on Dr. Fuller and myself to be successful. He's dealing with a lot of negativity in the department because he's not seen as the legitimate chair of the department because he was not appointed, he was not chosen according to bylaws and according to any constitution. So I'm not the only one who brings that up. So this is pretty much widespread. So Dr. Dalecki has been struggling because of that. And there was a statement made in a letter to the department that I found was kind of defamatory because it says there are no qualified or interested candidates in a position to take on chairship. And I thought that was kind of a strong statement considering that I am qualified, I was interested, and I think I'm in a position to be the chair of the Criminal Justice Department. I served in the department for years. I got promoted quickly, I got tenure, and I worked very hard for it. It wasn't made easy for me, so by no means I had to fight quite an uphill battle. I proved myself in many ways. I was the first one in my department ever to have gotten a fully paid sabbatical. I'm the first one who took students to Rotunda for research. I'm the first one who had CJ student present at a UW symposium. So I worked very hard. I have students involved. I have PACE projects going. I took students to Germany on a study abroad trip. That was funded not just by PACE, but also by the German government, so which reduced the costs tremendously. And that was a very unique visit. So students were treated like a delegation from the United States. So it was pretty high level. Also made contacts with the National Defense University in Washington D.C. and the internships opportunity. I got a student into the FBI. It was just a bachelor degree. So I've done a lot to really earn, I think, that status. I've worked in administration. I was the assistant to the dean of the largest police academy in California for several years, and worked for the state commission on things. So I'm familiar with administrative tasks. I also worked in administration in Germany. So I have an administrative background too. So in this regard, I thought it was, I think, uncalled for. The statement was uncalled for, and also like it hurt my image in the department, which is already hurt, and that's why this committee here actually recommended that my reputation would be addressed. That was in the last grievance, which never happened. It still hasn't happened. There are still people who think I did wrong, and rumors were spread that I'm menopausal, the menopausal bitch that has never been addressed. I'm not addressing it because it's not my job. It's not. I don't like this going back and forth thing. And so this is another statement that I think has hurt my image in the department. I'm going to leave it at that right now.
Dean Throop?
I think I need to, I did not fire Dr. Cawood, regardless of what he says. He volunteered to step down. So I need to correct the record on that. The last statement that Dr. Burton made about hormonal bitch, she seems to be implying I said that. Of course, I never said anything like that. And I'm sure she has no proof.
That was not an
No,
she wasn't implying that you said.
Okay, this grievance is about me, so I assume that what you're saying is about me. With regard to no one being consulted about the interim chairship, that's not so. I did consult with Dr. Fuller. And Dr. Fuller, as well as Dr. Cawood, had recommended Dr. Dalecki. So it was not based on his recommendation. I consulted the other senior member of the Department of Criminal Justice for the interim chairship. Dr. Burton also said something about threats about Dr. Dalecki putting her in her place. I never said anything like that. Of course, I never said that. This must be another one of those statements that was made to somebody else. But I want to make sure that the committee hears that I did not say that. With regard to qualifications, what Dr. Burton has listed as her qualifications are really very important qualifications about her amazing abilities as a teacher. I think there's no question that her presence in the classroom is absolutely astounding. From what I can tell, she's an inspired teacher. However, I think as most people know, in order to be an effective chair, there are other qualities that are required. The primary one is an ability to solve issues at the most local level possible instead of having dean involvement. And my experience of Dr. Burton's behavior in the year and a half that I've been here, well, at least last year, was that I was drawn into departmental issues on a very consistent basis. So when I thought of people who would be appropriate, let me step back. When I thought about who might be an appropriate interim chair, I really wanted to have someone who would solve problems at the departmental level rather than bringing them to me. And Dr. Burton's behavior in the past year had demonstrated that she wasn't solving problems at the local level. So for an interim chairship in a department that seems quite riven with conflict and difficulty, I thought it was best to bring someone in from the outside. But someone who has had some connection to the department. Dr. Dalecki has taught classes in criminal justice for pretty much his entire career here, including juvenile delinquency and research methods. So the various issues that Dr. Burton has brought up are either inaccurate or certainly have no evidence behind them. And with regard to bylaws, I have to say that the various governance documents regarding interim chairships are really contradictory, and I can't address that. The LAE Constitution says one thing, faculty Constitution says another, and it gave me absolutely no guidance at all. So essentially, the decision needed to be made pretty quickly, and when Dr. Kaywood stepped down, I had to act pretty quickly, and we needed a calm hand at the tiller. So I guess that most of what Dr. Burton has argued, I don't agree is an accurate rendition of what actually took place. Oh, I should say one other thing. Dr. Burton mentioned her reputation. She has filed a complaint with the Equal Rights Division of the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development, and that issue, among a number of other issues, is addressed in that complaint. As a result, that was filed on August 16th. I can't respond to the reputation piece of her claim.
Okay. Okay, this is an email sent Wednesday, July 10th by Dr. Throop. I understand that Tom Kaywood has communicated with you this morning about his decision to step away from being chair of the Criminal Justice Department. In the conversation that he had with the provost and me on Monday, he suggested that Mike Dalecki would be a good person to tap to serve as interim chair. After some discussion and deliberation, I asked Mike if he would be willing. There's no other mentioning, so suddenly it's different. There is also so this is one, an email from Dr. Kaywood late Monday afternoon. I was removed as chair by the provost. I don't know who's lying here, but somebody is, it's not me. I just work with the material I've been given. And either maybe people don't know how to write things, but it's not me. So, and also like he wrote, you as a department may want to have a say in who and how the next chair be selected. That was from Dr. Kaywood, written to our department, just a few hours before Dean Throop sent out the email that he stepped down. He didn't step down. And he made it very clear in our department. Maybe he has dementia, I don't know. But this is not, I have to go with what people say officially in the document. There's an official document to send everybody in our department. So this is kind of like in the bylaws and everything that we have. I don't know why I wasn't consulted. I'm a senior member now of the department. I'm a tenured member. I should have been consulted in this matter as well. Not just a person who was the defendant in a grievance, who violated, like policies left and right. It's not the first year this came up. It's a big deal if you have a senior faculty member in a department who does no longer have to report to Dr. Kaywood. That just doesn't happen if there weren't any allegations. Also, like, he's in violations of policies. Midi Nimox, as Dean here said, you have to have communication training within the next year. It was mandatory. Never happened. Dean's office didn't follow up on anything. And this is kind of what created these enormous problems in our department. I did not create them. I was in good standing. If I get retaliated against, if I get sexually harassed, if I get sexually discriminated, being called a token woman, sorry, that's sexual harassment. It's discrimination. If I'm removed from, if I'm not a logical choice, if somebody with a master's who doesn't even have a degree from a liberal arts school, with a master's, a one-year master's from an online for-profit school, is the logical choice to chair a search and screen. By the way, he's fifth one, and he was hired after me. That doesn't make any sense. He doesn't have a doctor. He doesn't have a degree from liberal arts. And he failed his search because people do not apply to someone who is way low. It's like we have another failed search because people do not want to have the title of assistant professor in forensic investigation. It's a bogus title. So I did not cause these problems, but when I have these severe problems in the department, where shall I go? I cannot handle sexual harassment, sexual discrimination, retaliation by talking to my chair when he is the problem. This is the task of the dean. It's an easy way out to say, like, why don't you just handle it? And why the heck does the dean now have to get involved in departmental affairs? She told me when I said all these things, I was bullied, I was retaliated against, I was sexually harassed, and I told her, I wrote her, I'm very sorry to bring to you yet another problem, but I feel that this is a matter that cannot be resolved by continued communication with my chair, who, by the way, didn't want to talk to me. He refused to respond to any questions. Please tell me what I did wrong. If I did something wrong, I take responsibility. If I didn't, this harassment has to stop. I asked him repeatedly. He didn't want to answer me. Our HR director told me, you know what, he doesn't have to respond to you. In fact, he doesn't have to say anything to you until you both retire. What the heck do I do, okay? I wrote to her what happened. It's just like, I talked about, the search and screen when I was kind of removed, even though that was supposed to be my position. I was not given that search and screen position in retaliation for having reported a student complaint. A student was sexually harassed by a professor in our department. I reported it in accordance to what the dean told me, how the dean told me to report it. I followed her instructions to a T. Dr. Kaywood took offense to that because he wanted to keep it in-house. And to this day, he still stands behind the professor who sexually harassed the student. It was just an experiment. The student came to me and says, this is a professor who says in class, imagine me being naked. In fact, our now chair had to instruct the same professor to let go of those sexual remarks. They have nothing to do with the material. He was ordered in a 4.5 single-spaced letter that he has to readdress the way he teaches. There's so many severe problems. And Dr. Kaywood did not want to address that because he stands behind his man. If you're a male, you're protected. And I wrote, I am convinced Tom is retaliating against me for having reported a sexual harassment incident. I wrote further, I feel this is a case of discrimination. Cheryl Fuller, Amy Nemetz, Ed Ross, and Deb Rice, as well as others, have told me that Kaywood doesn't give women the same consideration as men. I wrote examples of sexual bias. I also wrote, I'm facing a more and more hostile work environment. I cannot come to my dean, the boss of my boss, when this happens. Why the heck do I have to take it? So my mistake is that I spoke up against retaliation. On what planet? Where the heck do I take it? To my coworkers? You know that they're all afraid in the department? People don't talk because Tom has been a tyrant. You know, as a woman, you don't say, as long as you play around, you're all goofy and stuff. If you are a threat to a male in the department, you're put down. It's very clear. He gave me work to do during my sabbatical, even though he signed off that I wouldn't have any department work. I got over 60 advisees during that time. I had to develop a study abroad course just so I wouldn't be able to succeed and publish. So I wouldn't be a threat to his males in the department. This is just going too far. I had nowhere else to go. The other thing was court. I didn't want to take it to court. I wanted to resolve it within the school of LA&E. I wanted to resolve it with HR. When I asked for a grievance process, I wasn't given information. I was stonewalled over and over and over. I asked for the first time in January. It took me until March. And it wasn't even from the HR director. It wasn't from the dean's office. It was from Student Affairs. They finally gave me contact information for the Grievance Committee. Because it's not on the website. You can't find it anywhere there. So how the heck shall a member of this school who is retaliated against, who is discriminated against, how shall we address it? I don't like to cause any problems. This is not the first year I'm teaching. I've got my PhD in '96. I've been teaching at one of the most prestigious schools in the country. I never had to say anything. I'm not a problem employee, but I'm not taking abuse.
Unfortunately, I can't address pretty much everything that Dr. Burton has brought up because she has sued the university about those very issues. So again, I've been advised by counsel that I cannot address anything that's mentioned in her ERD complaint, which is essentially everything she just said. So.
At this point, I'd just like to ask any member of the committee to pose questions to either Dr. Burton or Dean Throop.
Oh, thank you. I've one for the dean and then one for Dr. Burton. Dean, in looking at the LA&E Constitution, Article 6, Section 2, it says the department chair serves at the pleasure of the department and the dean. That "and" word is causing problems for me. Do you see it as, is it a consensus is the way that, or do you support the idea of a department having a poor choice? How do you sort of see that pleasure of the department and the dean being resolved?
Well, if I have to do the work of the department chair, then the department chair isn't going to help me very much.
Right.
And will be an ineffective chair. And really, when it comes to faculty governance and shared governance, certainly there are important rights to be asserted as a person who's been a faculty member, but there are really important responsibilities as well. And so I need to be able to have confidence in my chairs. So the "and" is troublesome too. It would, of course, the very best situation is when there is consensus that the person in the chair job is at least doing an adequate job. So yeah, it troubles me as well. And then the university documents say something else. So it's kind of tough.
And I'm not familiar with criminal justice DRB, but I assume that your elections are a majority vote. There's not a consensus requirement. So it's conceivable that whoever the department puts up would not necessarily have a full support. So it's reasonable to assume that in any situation there would be disagreement among the department, and that the dean's responsibility would then be to try to find some level of function. Okay. My question, Dr. Burton, to you was, in your original complaint, and I didn't bring my copy, so I'm sorry, but it's okay. As I understood your complaint, which maybe I don't understand it, is that you felt the dean overstepped her boundaries by implementing an interim chair, sort of in violation of the policies and practices. But what was interesting is in your comments, you stated that you wanted her to sort of a priori eliminate two possible people as being acceptable, even if they had gotten the votes. So it seems to be confusing to me that it's not so much that you don't value the dean stepping in and overstepping maybe some governance. You just don't like the way she did it. She just didn't do it in the way, she didn't give you the answer you wanted, and so that's what your complaint is. Not that she didn't, right, is that correct? I mean, it had the majority of let's say Tom got the majority of votes. You would have wanted the dean at that point to step in and say, no, we've been down that road.
The dean was the chancellor's office. I mean, like, you have somebody removed for disciplinary, problems. I mean, like, that's a pretty severe thing. And
No doubt.
and I had a talk with the chancellor and the provost. And that was kind of indicated it was in the making. So there would be something. It doesn't make sense to vote for someone who just
No, I agree. But given that, given if there was an election and Tom got the most votes, you would have wanted the dean at that moment to step in and say, taking into consideration the totality of the situation, that would be a poor choice.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like a job. I mean, this is how the process runs. I mean, like, if you have, we had this happening now too. We had two untenured people. One is in his second year and the other one in his third year. And the one person where there are some issues, the way with student conduct, and that they thought it was a good idea. And and I just observed this, like, at this point, when you're still a probationary faculty member, it's very problematic to have you run a department. So I think this is the job as an administrator. I think, like, to kind of oversee and make sure that it's handled properly. So you have, you have guidelines and you kind of follow those guidelines. And if there's a problem with it, it's just like you cannot have somebody with a criminal record serving on a certain position. So I think then, there has to be some kind of oversight in this regard.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I don't need to monopolize. Go ahead.
Well, bear with me a second while we back up a little bit. In terms of what would you like us to specifically do in the context of this grievance? Because I heard you talk about some issues with respect to sexual harassment complaints by you to the dean and to the former chair, Dr. Kaywood, and then voicing the complaints of a student and that about a colleague, I take it. And now, to be honest, this is the first time I've heard something like that.
That was addressed in the previous grievance.
Yeah,
so
that's
been
not.
addressed.
Yeah.
That's not, actually, we won't have that under decision.
Yeah, that's not relevant now.
It's also part of her ERD complaint. It's listed.
Well, are we being asked to step in and preclude the ERD? I mean, you can make those kind of decisions here. We can make them in the Equal Rights Division. And likewise, so I'm trying to figure out how it relates to the issue about the election of a replacement person and how you see the process, that to replace the person, who's either resigned or been removed. I'm not sure that it makes a whole lot of difference in my way of thinking that it's whether he was fired, he stepped down, but certainly in terms of having a new chair, I don't see much in the way of interim chairs either, and it's not. So I wonder if there's some kind of special need to have an interim chair here, as opposed to the process seems to be that if the person steps down on the university level as a chair, then we either go searching for a new person in connection with that position. The person has resigned or retired would seem to be the legal or the kind of step that would be necessary there. And that doesn't seem to be the case. And that we do need a new chair, and so that we would have an election that would be then having to require the consent of the dean. So I've always understood that to be kind of a veto of the results, in that the dean would be able to say, well, I don't support the selection that we've had. I know that you talk about having people be tenured to be eligible to be chair, and I'm not certain if that's a department requirement or just an assumption that that would be the person that you'd most likely want to have in that position of department chair for practical purposes. Doesn't seem to be the requirement anywhere of our university bylaws or the college
No,
bylaws.
it's not. But it's best practice. So.
Well, right.
I
And,
think it's best practice for a tenured person.
So, I guess getting back, would you like us to, if you were to have your ultimate goals settled, your heart's desire from this, are you requesting us to have a new election, or to what do you want for a remedy?
Okay. I think an acknowledgement that the process wasn't followed. I mean, there's a state law in it that addresses faculty governance, their bylaws, their LNE constitution, and we had people who are qualified. I think we as a department, we deserved an opportunity. I mean, that was taken from us. I mean, every 3 years we're supposed to have election. That wasn't done. And it would have been nice, because there were problems with our department. I mean, they're well known outside of our department. We are known there's a lot of issues. I mean, you come from business. I mean, I know plenty of your colleagues that shake their head all the time about us. So it's not a secret that our department has a lot of deep problems. But we have people who are motivated and want to do things. I think we should have been given a chance to kind of go through that voting process, and then and then have the dean evaluate, and then kind of say, hey, I don't want this candidate for the following reasons. But we had that option, and it was just taken from us. And it's not fair, because our department didn't mess up. It was Kwood who messed up. Why the heck are we as a department then punished? And our government is taken away from us because we have one person retaliating over a student complaint.
Can I say?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I have a question with regard to, I see your point about choosing reasonably for a department chair. And having been a department chair who really didn't appreciate the kinds of things I had to do, and don't miss it by any means, I can understand why you would choose.
And remember, this is an interim chair.
Right, interim chair. One of the questions I have, though, is with regard to the process. It does, it's pretty clear that it does say, that it is by the faculty and obviously with the blessing of the dean. But there wasn't, as I understand it, there wasn't a vote that was taken by the department.
There was a vote in September, but it was true. It was after.
So it was after
Dalecki
took over,
inhabited the office. But again, it's an interim position,
right.
And our plan, of course, is to move forward with a national search for a chair. This is where 12-month positions are kind of behind the curve here, in that these shared governance documents that we're all talking about here, besides being contradictory, don't address 12-month positions.
And so the chair of that department, chair of doing 12 months.
CJ
right?
is a 12-month position, as is the director of the School of Ed, and of course Susan Hansen in business is a 12-month chair. So the way that Tom became chair, as I understand it, was before my time, is that it was the result of a national search.
So okay, and if you appoint an interim chair outside of the department, there's an implication, at least to my mind, that nobody in the department is eligible to apply for department chair then.
Or in a position to. So, for example, Eric Patel, who would have been eligible, had taken on the interim sponsored programs position. Kwood had stepped down.
Right.
Fuller said she didn't want to do it. And again, I had some concerns about Dr. Burton's ability to solve problems. So as far as I was concerned, for the interim chairship,
Okay.
She wasn't an appropriate candidate at that time.
And that does bring me to, because I'm hearing a concern here that there is a pattern of behavior to which she has been subjected, and as a result of having to deal with that pattern, she is at least feeling, and there are indications that it might be the case, that she is being further punished as a result of that pattern of behavior against her. And so, I can understand your position of wanting somebody in there who's going to be doing the job rather than creating more work for you. But then I can also understand her position of what you have really experienced with her is this pattern of behavior against her that she had nowhere else to go but to you. And so it seems that now she's being penalized because she had nowhere else to go and she went to you. So could you address that?
Yes, yeah, of course. First of all, if you look at the governance documents, there's no inherent right to a chairship. That's
right.
sort of the first piece. So all I could do is, for the interim chairship, is make a decision based on my experience of people.
And so there was no decision to call a vote before?
Right, it was July 9th, so there was nobody around. And it certainly was not intentional, but that's just how it happened. Now, there's been a vote. There was a vote on September 17th, and the results of the vote were 3 people voted for Lauren Gibson, who is not tenured. 2 people voted for Rex Reed, who is not tenured, and there were 3 abstentions.
Wow.
Dr. Burton's name was not part of the mix.
You mean nobody had voted for her?
Nobody had voted for her, including herself, apparently. So
I want to elaborate on that. Dean Throop was there at the first meeting, and it came up that we wanted to have an election. She said, no matter who you vote for, I will veto it. So it was clear from, you will not. This is ridiculous, it's futile. I even thought, some of us just looked at each other and says, why do we even bother come in at 7 o'clock the next morning? The next week. It was made from the beginning that she would not tolerate a vote. I wrote everything down. That was made very clear. So why should I run for something that is kind of like a joke anyway? And so I didn't. I thought about putting my name in the ring, and I would have gotten votes. But, and it could have easily gotten 2, maybe even 3 votes, maybe even more, who knows. There were people who especially Dr. Fuller, would have voted for me. So we decided instead we just abstain, because this is ridiculous. And also it was after the fact, we already have a chair. He was an interim chair, and it was kind of a little bit late in the process to kind of rock the boat like this. I want to do what's best for the department. And that should have been done before Dalecki would have been appointed. We should have first had an opportunity to vote. And going back to how Dr. Kaywood became chair, I want to just point out there was an internal search. There was a vote in the department. And what happened is that Kaywood voted for himself. And there was Catherine Wins voted for Joe Lomax, who was at that time the acting chair. Joe Lomax, because Kaywood challenged him, he didn't want to vote for himself, so he abstained. So it was 1 vote against, it was 1 against 1. And that's when then they did a national search on it. Not because they didn't have any candidates, so they actually did the proper process then. They had first an internal search and vote on it, but it didn't result in a doable result. They didn't get a result out of it. Then they kind of used the national search, and Kaywood kind of entered there, and he was a default candidate because people, you can ask Dr. Fuller on it, but that was the only reason that they had a national search. Now, it was said already in July that I appointed Dalecki, that was based on the recommendation of Kaywood, and then we will have a national search. Now, Dalecki is now appointed for 2 years, 2-year interim chair. And a national search, again, will take our chances or diminish our chances as faculty members to be having a fair chance of becoming chair. So it is kind of bypassed. So it was made very clear to us, we will not have any more internal voting on it. And that speaks against faculty governance. And there is really no need for, if we have qualified candidates, then we should first have a vote within a department before we go to a national search.
To get back to what Dr. White asked as far as what you want here, my impression, my interpretation is that you would like for this committee to confirm or deny that Dean Throop has violated the process. And in so doing, then, that becomes part of the pattern that you have seen established.
Yeah, because it's really it's tough to kind of have to take that. It's like adding insult to injury. I've had a horrible last year. You know, I mean, like my dad died, and Kay would use that opportunity to whack me just on the day my dad died, and he knew it. They were out to destroy me. And just because I didn't give in, I should have just rolled over or leave. And I was even told I should leave several times. I didn't. So because I stood the ground here, because I stood up for this student, who, by the way, in her email was attacked for being too sensitive. It's another matter, and Kay would sign off on that. You know, because I stood up for her, I get punished. I mean, like, where else to take it? I had to take it to the dean and to student affairs. It doesn't make sense to punish me for that. And that I'm now a troubled person because I had to deal with it. This exact way Dr. Fuller told me she didn't file a grievance 3 years ago when I started. And she just took it to the dean's office. The dean's office handled it so that Dr. Fuller reported to the dean instead of to Dr. Kaywood. And the reason she didn't want to file a grievance is because the administration will retaliate. So she warned me this will happen. If you want to do well in the school, you do not want to fight this.
But that isn't what we're here to decide. Basically, as I understand it, all we're here to decide is if there was a violation in procedure.
Correct. This is all I'm asking for.
Aaron, anything further?
I don't believe it.
Scott?
Well, I'm struggling with the interim. You know, for example, I've heard of in other places policies of using an interim chair to solve problems, and you know, I would be. Of course, we don't have the rest of the department here to help shed light on the things, but what I've heard from both of you is that it's not a happy group, and so would an election be worth it? I mean, in the sense that if several of you for some reason don't participate, abstain from voting, or and there's a split between who's eligible to be or who would be the replacement, and you can't just necessarily hire somebody from outside right away. Can an outside person come in and solve the internal debates and be useful that way? Admittedly, outside of perhaps the strict adherence to the procedure of the bylaws. And
I think so. It's just like, I mean, life isn't easy, and I was the first woman in federal law enforcement. It's not exactly easy either. I faced a lot of difficulties there, and I handled them quite well. I did not resign. I was promoted pretty quickly. I worked for the government. I was in a pretty powerful position. In fact, like for my age, I was way, way younger than the others because I did so well. And one big problem was Dr. Dalecki, who, by the way, I work very well with. I have a very good working relationship with him. And I'm supporting him wherever I can. I want him to be successful because I want the department to be successful. But he gets a lot of opposition because he's from outside the department. This is one of the biggest, it's by fellow faculty and staff members, it's the biggest problem. He was kind of like he was brought in and was against the will of the department. So there is a lot of opposition because he did not come from within the department. And he actually applied for a assistant professorship position in 2011, the position actually that Dr. Lauren Gibson holds right now. And it was at that time it was seen as not a good idea that Dalecki would put his head in the ring, so he had to withdraw from that application. But I mean, now we have a chair who at that time was not found as a good choice or would not have been the right choice for that position. And now he's chair, so there's a lot of surprised people in our department. He did not come from within CJ. He does not actually teach within the department. He teaches courses that fall under etiology. Just like with psychology department, there's psychology and law. It's a psychology course. It's not a CJ course, but under the etiology, it qualifies for CJ credit. So Mike Dalecki has not taught in the Department of Criminal Justice. So his crime delinquency course is a sociology course that also qualifies for under etiology, just like juvenile delinquency. And juvenile delinquency has been taught for I don't know how many years by Ed Ross, so it has not been taught by Dr. Dalecki in our department. So Ed Ross has been teaching this class. And you can go all the way back on Haskell and stuff and look who has taught it. So, also Dr. Dalecki was on our DRB and he was removed by the department because the department did not find him a good addition to our DRB. So there were some issues with him, whether you agree with them or not, but I think that resulted in a lot of opposition, and again, not so much from me, but from other members in the department. And many folks thought, we have people in the CJ department who would have been eligible. Why not use them or try it with them first?
If I could go to your actual question about interim chairs. I was actually an interim dean before coming here, and one of the specific reasons was to actually solve some serious problems that were taking place in the school of which I was a dean. So I think that often, not always, but often an interim appointment is for the express purposes of trying to help a department or a college move on and move into a healthier place. And it's my sense that, in fact, that's what's happening right now. But again, Dr. Dalecki is an interim. The plan is to have a national search.
National search, though, is kind of says like such action is necessary in order to successfully fill the position, but it's kind of like it seems like this is only like an option is only like done when one cannot find somebody from within the department.
Oh, I invite Dr. Burton to apply, absolutely.
Yeah, but
for the permanent position, absolutely invite her.
But then we don't need a national search. We should first go through that process where the department can vote on it, and if this does not yield a result, or we cannot get, for example, we have two candidates who get the same amount of votes and stuff, and we cannot agree on something, then we move to a national search. I don't see why we would bypass this process. Why bother having these policies in place?
When does the national search take place?
As soon as the tenure track, they've got 2 tenure track searches going, and Dr. Burton is actually chairing one of the search committees this year. I think I'm seeing candidates starting tomorrow.
Wednesday,
and thank you. So when those are concluded, which I hope will be before Christmas, then I want to meet with the department and start planning
for the
permanent position.
And when will when do you anticipate the ad?
It depends on the department. It depends on what I get from the conversations I have with the department. So that's as much as I can say right now. So
yeah, we were told 2 years in the last department.
What I'm wondering is there an opportunity to do as we think about what our options are here, is there an opportunity for the department to have a legitimate kind of internal vote where they would take time and study the applications of anybody in the department who's interested and determine among themselves if there was someone there they wanted? And
I think that would be sort of the first step of the discussion of how to structure because this is also an opportunity for the department to figure out what it is that it wants organizationally. So the short answer is yes.
So the department, if they wanted to, they actually could do an internal kind of vote. Okay. So that's not off the table at this point. Okay.
Can I speak? I mean, is it appropriate for me to say something?
Go ahead.
Okay. The LA&E Constitution, Article 6, Section 4 says, at least once every 3 years or upon written request by the majority of the department members, the dean shall solicit from the department faculty its choice for chair. This choice shall be determined by a vote of the faculty in a manner established by the department faculty, or in the absence of faculty-approved procedure, by a vote conducted by the dean. So the dean solicits the department for its choice for chair. That's the way it should be done, is the way I read it. Another thing that I read is that the policies and procedures of the Criminal Justice Department says that the chair of the Department of Criminal Justice is appointed in a manner consistent with current faculty bylaws to a 9-month position with an additional summer appointment. The standard appointment may be redefined as a full-time 12-month administrative position if such action is necessary in order to successfully fill the position. It doesn't say that it is a 12-month position just because it was a 12-month position. It says that if it's necessary to fill, then it can be a 12-month position.
I'd just like to amend what you said. If you look at Article 6, Section 4, subsection 4, should the dean not concur with the department's choice, he or she will, 1, inform the members of the department's reasons, and 2, conduct a new election.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
So conducting a new election, of course, that could run us into a riddle of election cycles.
Until everyone's...
If by default the dean believes with good cause that there is no eligible member, then we'll get nowhere with that set of...
But it doesn't say anywhere in here that if the dean doesn't feel there's an appropriate member, that he or she can do away with the election. It says you do this, and the right thing to do is you go through the process, you have the elections, and then if the elected person is not appropriate, then the dean puts in writing why that person's not appropriate, puts it out, says that person is not going to be the chair, and then let's have another election. You have another election, another person's elected, then the dean says that person's not appropriate. But you see, the problem is that my wife has been put down, and the best reason I can see why is what Dean Throop just said earlier. She wasn't solving problems at a local level. And my question is, how could she possibly solve the problem at a local level when it's her boss that is the problem? She has no power in the department.
And that is one of the things that was requested in this grievance, is that a letter be given that indicates why she is not considered to be either eligible or whatever in this position. And okay, so that would be another thing that we could recommend if we wanted to, would be there would be something on record then that would indicate why she was not eligible for this.
I have one more I'd like to read. Faculty bylaw, Article 1, Section 1. Each full-time faculty member in the department is eligible for election. That's one thing that it says. Section 2 says, a chair of a department may be removed from the position in either of 2 ways. By the college dean, there's one way that doesn't apply, and then the second way is by the college dean in consultation with the department members. So if he was removed, it should have been in consultation with the department members.
Well, my understanding was that there was consultation. It may not have been the entirety of the department.
Okay.
Right. I mean, it does get a little, the department members there. It's like all the department members.
Nobody consulted with Dr. Burton.
No, I got that.
And I do need to reiterate that he was not removed.
Section.
He stepped down.
All right. That's all I have.
At any point, I do want to point out, though, that Article, Wisconsin 36.09 does begin with the statement that all of the decisions are ultimately the decision of the chancellor and the chancellor's advisory, so basically the provost and the dean. So bottom line is the faculty governance is not a legal contract that in the end they can do whatever they choose to do. And that is the case. So it seems to me that arguing arguing that these laws, which are not really laws, were broken is not real useful to us at this point. I think what's more useful to us is to just look at, was procedure violated? Was there clarity in why procedure might have been violated, or I shouldn't say violated. Was procedure followed, and if there wasn't a following of that procedure, was there clarity provided in why that procedure was not followed? And then from there, it's up to whoever to either go to the courts of law to make those decisions or to settle for what has been passed down. I think that's where we are.
One thing's too, and I totally understand that it has to be approved on the top. It's just like saying we have a search and screen going on, we have candidates, the Chancellor's Office has the final say. But it cannot be done arbitrarily. There has to be an explanation, because otherwise you would discriminate people for personal reasons. They're too old, this one is pregnant, and so on. I mean, because otherwise we have that. And this is a public school. This is a publicly funded school, so we have to adhere to those rights, to the Civil Rights Act. And because of that, there has to be an explanation. If the explanation is good enough, then one can ask questions, one can appeal it. Otherwise, it would be a dictatorship. So even though these are not official laws, we still have to go kind of with an official process here. And if you disagree with a candidate, you have to articulate why. It has to make sense. Otherwise, it's just arbitrarily.
Are there any remaining questions? Scott? Okay.
No, thanks.
All right. Well, then I think we can wrap this up. And our Grievance Committee will meet sometime within the next week or so, I hope. And certainly forward to you any recommendation that we make. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thanks.